Well, it's Emil Guillermo. Emil, Amok to you. Here in the Gong Closet, they've lifted mask restrictions indoors, but here in the Gong Closet, you must carry your mask. You must carry your mask. That's just the Gong Closet Board of Supervisors passed that law specific to the confines of the closet. You got to carry your mask. I'm all for masks. I think masks, I mean, really, masks. I love them. I just thought instead of neckties, I think they're cool. Anyway, how are you? Thank you for being here for the Emil Muck's Takeout. My takes on all things considerable. You know, this is, as I like to say, the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAX's AAPI. Why, of course, that would be the Asian American Pacific Islanders. And the AAX's, well, that would be, of course, the Asian American X. Add your ethnicity. Asian American Hmong, the AAH, AAH. Asian American Cambodians, AACs, but the Chinese would be AACH. That would be Yeah, Mrs. Zuckerberg. She's an really, thank you. And all the rest of you. You don't have to be any of those, right? Just like Levy's Jewish rye bread. The old saying goes, you don't have to be, right? You can be just ALL. All's the rest of us. Of course. Welcome to the program. We're here Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Live. You may have noticed you're getting a little extra. I mean, early, you're getting a little extra. It's what I do. It's what I do for you. Emil Muck's Takeout. This program is episode 246. Maybe you caught 245. We send out 245. We did it yesterday, and well, this is episode 246, and sometimes it's an improvement of 245. Sometimes it's more new stuff. I mean, we're going to talk about stuff. We're going to talk about Christina Yuna Lee today because I went back into the writing part of the Gone Closet, and I actually published an essay on Christina Yuna Lee on the AALDEF blog. You can read all my columns on AALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. I know a lot of people don't like to read anymore. They just like to be told things. I mean, not like in an autocratic way, like you will do this, you will do that. I mean, not like Putin, you know. But they would rather, well, some people love to read still, but some people want to hear it, right? Depends on your preference. So I'll read from that, my piece on Christina Yuna Lee, who was murdered on Sunday, and talk about how I processed it and some of my thoughts about what should happen next. I want to talk about the school board. San Francisco School Board made the front page of the New York Times today because it's a big deal. Because it was a landslide recall of three. They were called progressives, liberal progressives, but they, as I said in yesterday's show, they just were lost when it came to education. They just didn't know anything when it came to how to administer to one of the largest school districts in the country. So they were recalled. I'll tell you how it happened, how Asian Americans were behind it. Not me, but it actually could be a good thing for Asian Americans. So I'll talk about that. Talk about the New York Asian theater story. 5 Asian American playwrights for Asian American actors over the age of 60. It's happening at the New York Public Theater, big New York Times piece. I'm going to talk about it because I am in that category And maybe they should call. I'll go to the public theater, talk about my Emil Amok's monologue. I performed it at fringe festivals around the country. It's worthy of the public, I think. I'll talk about that. We'll talk about Lowell. Talk about the Golden Gooster. She won the second, or she won silver. And when you win silver, okay, you won. But come on, she's born in America. She's Asian. She's ABCT, American born Chinese team. So, I just figure someone, President Xi, someone, maybe her mom, is saying, oh, Ailing Eiling Gu, ABCT, silver, huh? Why not gold? Why not gold? Do you think she's getting that? I think she's getting that. I hope not. Look, I'm not picking on her, but there's some serious things about Ailing Eiling Gu that we've talked about. You can read about it in the AALDEF blog that I wrote. And also, I think she is the Asian American that we want to look at. Not for the obvious reasons. I mean, she's a model. But because she's doing some interesting things. She is the premier skier in this particular type of skiing. And if you read the Wall Street Journal today, man, the Wall Street Journal was funny. It said that Chinese discovered skiing. They did. Well, it's cold there in Mongolia, and but that, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Chinese are saying they discovered skiing. So it's a natural that Eiling Gu is out there thinking that all of China is like her personal Lake Tahoe. I mean, she's a San Franciscan born. So it's kind of like, oh, it's like one big Lake Tahoe. So we'll talk about her, who I dubbed the Golden Gooster, because she is making, $31 million last year, and she's going to make more. She's got her second medal today, Wednesday. She qualifies or tries to qualify for her third medal in the half pipe. And then Thursday, she goes for her third medal. And if she does, it'll be something. People will say, hey, geopolitical Olympics. I mean, already we know that when it comes to ice skating, ice doping, it's called ice doping now. We know they don't care about the rules because of the Russian skater. I'd like to remember her name, but I'm going to take the stand of people who say, well, why repeat her name? Give her the notoriety. Well, she's 15. But, why say her name? Well, okay. You know her name. She cheated. And she's making a mockery of the Olympics. But didn't you think this was going to happen when you go to an autocratic country? They make, what does the rule of law mean to the autocratic country? And in fact, it doesn't mean anything. Rule of the Olympics, what does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean anything. So we shouldn't be surprised. So we'll talk about the Golden Gooster, and I do. Yesterday we talked about Ukraine, and we talked about Biden speaking, and I'll tell you, it's all trust and verify, right? To harken back to the Reagan phrase. Russia says they're pulling back, but nothing we see tells us that they're pulling back. So Biden's saying an invasion We're ready for it. And we'll respond. NATO will respond. But just think of that scenario. What does that remind you of? Russia says, we're pulling back. And yet, everything to the contrary, or everything that we see, visuals, suggest they're lying. What does it mean when we can't believe our eyes, or when we're told to not believe what we see? This is the gaslight war. It's Russia. It's the Russia playbook. It's the Trump playbook. It's cyber attacks. We saw that during the campaign when Russia attacked, the American electoral process. And now we see it on the world stage where Russia says, oh, we're pulling back. We're pulling back. But everything suggests, no, they're not pulling back. They're not, but we cannot verify. We'll trust you. We can't verify anything. The gaslight wars. That's what we're in. I think that you started hearing about this when Trump and Putin were in cahoots, and then when Trump was elected, and then Trump in Helsinki. It's gaslight. Trump style. This is all Trump style. This is what we're looking at. It's become the international political thing where people hide behind their rhetoric and then do whatever they want. The U.S. should proceed with caution, but with NATO, it does seem like Joe Biden is prepared. President Biden is prepared, and I would hope that people will understand or realize how well he is doing, considering. I mean, if the other guy was in there, if Trump had won, who knows how bad things would be in Ukraine. And only because Putin has the green light, Putin knows what he's got to act, while Trump is the lame duck. If had Trump won, I just think that's what we're talking. We got the gaslight war now in Ukraine. All right, so all those things coming up here today on our program. And if I like I said, if you saw or heard episode 245, I talked about Christina Yuna Lee. And I had to go back to write about, collect my thoughts and think about this, because I've got a daughter living in New York, and I'm concerned for her. I'm concerned for anyone, young woman, anyone vulnerable, seniors, guys like me who get their butts kicked by Michelle Yeoh. I'm concerned. And so I'm thinking about Christina Yuna Lee, how she died tragically, violently, unexpectedly, Sunday morning. She screamed her last breath. And then last night, as I was trying to put together this piece, my friend, Joe, I call him, Ganoza, died in peace. Now, I've known Joe for more than 50 years. I didn't know Christina at all. And yet I felt her loss far more than I expected. I didn't know Christina, but we had many slivers of affinity. I mean, we never met, but we had a lot of things that we were fighting for. We were fighting the same fights. But first, my respects to my friend Joe, Jose. He was one of the big brothers of my best friend, which means he was my big brother too. He was a Peruvian immigrant with a touch of Chinese. You know, people know about the Japanese in Peru. There were Chinese too in Peru. And their father, Joe's father, had a touch of Chinese in him, which made him look Filipino. And everyone thought we were related. You know, I mean, he was always there to help when you needed it, or to kick some ass when you were really in trouble. I know Joe would have been there for Christina had he known her. You know, Joe had been in the military. He had a uniform. He served in Vietnam. He always looked out for you. And as an adult, he worked for the city of San Francisco and would always ask to make sure if I'd done X or Y, filled out paperwork. You know, he cared. Did you do this? Did you do that? Joe wasn't one of the more than 900,000 to die of COVID during the pandemic. He just died during COVID of plain old organ failure. And that's all my friend, an engineer, would say. He said, organ failure. But the family knows why he died. He was still in grief from the loss of his wife of more than 30 years. When Nina passed during the holidays, Joe was depressed. And depression led to a loss of will. And when Joe came back from the hospital this week, he was ready and determined to join Nina. And his home became his hospice. Life's slow exit. So when he died last night, it was like we were all prepared. We knew it was coming. We were prepared for that last breath. No one was ready for Christina Yuna Lee's sudden and traumatic death. I'm at an age now where I can, I can't watch fictional crime or true crime on TV. You know, when you know the rules of narrative and you know here comes a dramatic spike or something's going to happen, I spare myself. I turn the channel. I walk away. I get a sandwich. I do something. But you cannot walk away from Christina Yuna Lee's death, not as an individual, certainly not as a community, AAPI or the broad general community. If you don't know Lee's story, she's a 35-year-old Korean American. She was coming home to her apartment in Chinatown early Sunday morning. Security cam footage caught an image of a man believed to be the suspect, Asamad Nash, 25, a homeless person with a criminal record. He's alleged to have followed Lee to her apartment, forcibly entered, then stabbed Lee to death in her bathtub. Someone called 911 about screams from the apartment. And when police arrived, they heard the screams fade, and then they heard a female voice say, "We don't need the police here. Go away." But the voice was that of the perp. And when the police got through the door, Lee was found dead with more than 40 stab wounds. Prosecutors said Nash was found under the bed, the murder weapon behind a dresser. And now he faces murder and burglary charges and is being held without bail. If convicted, he could face 25 years to life. So a lot of people thought first, was this a hate crime against an Asian American? The police, NYPD, still investigating, but this may just be a case of hate beyond hate crime. The kind of hate that you don't really need to go to hate crime because it could have happened to anyone, no matter what the race or gender. Anyone perceived as vulnerable could have been a target. Asian Americans, we'd still feel the pain. We'd still feel fearful for all our brothers and sisters. And for me, my daughter, younger but no less vulnerable than Lee, she's in New York City, which is fast becoming a city where people on the streets are unstable, homeless, or both, and represent real threats to public safety. There are no easy answers here. But when treatment and help is elusive for some people, they almost become like perps in waiting for an opportunity, maybe just to get back into a system where they can get 3 squares in a cell. Freedom is relative when you're young, mentally stressed, and homeless. And then you get victims on both sides of the equation. And bad things can happen to innocents in an instant. As I said, I didn't know Lee. But the heartfelt tweet of one of her colleagues at Splice, she worked at a place called Splice. Kenneth Takanami Herman told me, what we all need to know about Lee. He called her irreplaceable. Said she loved music, just moved into her new Chinatown apartment. She loved having her own place where she could listen to vinyl records, music. That was her passion. And reading that about vinyl records made an old rock and roll FM DJ like myself, Emil for real. That was my name. St. Louis, Houston, Cambridge. Emil for real. Maybe we want to play some records. Just to hear that crackle and pop. Herman and Lee got to know each other at Splice during the time of the Atlanta spa murders. And just like many of us, we heard the news. We remember I was in a Zoom meeting, sort of like this, but with a dozen Asian American artists and performers. And we just looked at each other in silence. And we knew we had to do something, say something. Herman and Lee formed a support group at Splice. They discovered they shared a mission to make work and society more inclusive, more diverse. Lee formed the Art Appropriation Council to combat racism and appropriation. When we're fortunate, we find the path to social justice in the work we do. And just doing our best. We try to bend the arc our way. And so now we must think of what we can do for Christina. That will bend the arc for all. That will make New York safe for all. She'd want us to remember her last breath. So that's my essay. You can get it, read it, AALDEF blog, AALDEF.org/blog. I don't know what the answer is. I know a lot of people, I said yesterday, there are people who say no more to the homeless shelters, in their neighborhood. But I think you can't go NIMBY on everyone, not in my backyard. You got to be part of the solution when the problem comes to you. But I'm not a politician. The politicians are going to have to try to figure it out. Budget time is near. How are they going to deal with it? This is a problem. And whether it's Christina, Yuna Lee, or Michelle Go and how she was pushed by a man who was homeless, criminal record. We're going to have to work together to try to find a solution. So my condolences to the families of Christina, Yuna Lee, certainly the families of my friend Jose Joe Ganoza. Although, even though I talked to my friend this week and I just said, it just sounds like Joe had given up. And I don't know if it was that or he was just tired or just wanted to be with his wife, but when he wanted to go to hospice, that was his choice. The best thing you could hope for is that you die in peace, without pain, in peace. So I remember Christina, Joe. That's important. Whoop, wrong sound. I didn't mean for that. I meant for the other sound, but I can't. I meant for my swish sound to come up. Let's see if this is my swish sound. It's like turning a page. All right, I want to talk about this school board thing because wherever you are, if you're Asian American, if you got young kids still in high school, this is important, especially if you got if you go to public high schools and you demand the best education for your kid, which means I want the best public education that we can get because I can't afford $60,000 a year for private school. And that means having schools like Lowell High School or schools like Stuyvesant in New York or Bronx High School of Science, or I think those are the academic magnets. And a lot of those schools are under attack, which is probably why the New York Times put that story front and center. San Francisco School Board, they had a recall election yesterday. And by a landslide, the three so-called progressive candidates were thrown out, lost their jobs. And, you know, they just didn't know how to deal with education, but they knew how to do things like, oh, there are not enough schools named for African Americans or schools named for Latinos or Asians. And so the hill they chose to die on was, well, let's change the names of all the schools, which is good if you have the time and the energy and the focus to do that. But you're dealing with a school system that has troubles with money, troubles with testing and student achievement. You got to go to the basics. And that's where people started getting these three board members in the crosshairs. But it especially came to roost when they decided they would change the academic magnet, Lowell High School, and make it just a regular school and take away the quality of education that Lowell was all about. I wrote about it. The movie Try Harder is about Lowell. I write about it on the AALDEF blog. You should search for it just within the last year. But apparently, Lowell High School alumni were responsible for getting the recall together, and they found one board member had tweets that called Asian Americans house N-words. She used that term. He said success isn't due to hard work, but because Asian Americans embraced whiteness. And there was this sense that, oh, well, Asian Americans are in subservience in acting white. And this one woman, Diane Yap, was, and I've had some exchanges with Diane, very conservative woman, but she and I agree that Lowell High School should be preserved. Lowell High School should be there for people who don't have $60,000 a year to afford private school, like ailing Eileen Gu, who lives out in Seacliff. So, congratulations in order to Diane. One of the things that is going to happen now is the mayor, San Francisco's Mayor London Breed, is going to have to appoint three new people to serve out the terms, and then they'll have to run on their own. But it seems that there are more than a handful of people of color, who probably will make sure that Lowell High School is restored. I mean, Lowell High School really is a jewel of a high school. It is the jewel of public education, if not in San Francisco, then in all of California. A public high school that sends more people to places like, well, Ivy League school, Stanford. It's also 40-50% Asian. And some people thought that was too much. I actually think that 40-50% Asian is too much. I like to see it a little more diverse, because my argument has always been (80-90% white was no good. Why would 80 or 90% Asian be any good? Because if you let the market reign in terms of allowing qualified people to enter Lowell, you probably would end up with a school that was 60-70% Asian in San Francisco. Anyway, well, that's the next chapter of this. The school board has been ousted. Asian Americans played a role. And now the mayor will have to appoint 3 new school board members, and we'll see if Lowell gets preserved as an academic magnet. And then here's my beef. I went to Lowell. I love Lowell High School. I want it preserved. But what are you going to do for everyone else? You've got to make all the other schools just as good, or have the students who want to stay in their neighborhood schools, you got to give them the opportunity to get the same level, the same quality of education that the kids at Lowell are getting, which I don't think happens today. So we'll see. A next chapter. But this is going to be an issue that reverberates in other cities, not just cities with Asian Americans, but cities that have these magnets, these academic magnets. And I think New York, that's why they talked about it on the front page of the Times today. Got to have that swish. Got to have that. I mean, if this were the Tucker Carlson show, he'd have that, and then you'd see a spinning graphic, go by. That's right. That's not me from lunch. That's a swoosh sound. Not a Nike swoosh. All right, this was in the Times today also. 5 monologues, each a showcase for Asian American actors over 60. Out of Time at the Public Theater is intended to showcase the talents of older actors. People want to dismiss your stories, the show director says. Not here. And so it's a big takeout on the actors who will perform in Out of Time. We have Natsuko Ohama, Rita Wolf, Glenn Kubota, Paige Leong, and Mia Katigbak. And I applaud them. I applaud the public, and I thank the public. Director Les Waters. I don't think I'm going to be able to get to New York to see it, but I hope they tour with it. I hope they bring it elsewhere, because these are stories that are that need to be told. And wouldn't you want an Asian American actor over 60 telling these stories rather than a 40-year-old Asian American actor who puts on the makeup and the white hair? Because generationally, if you're an Asian American actor, you're starting to see things change. I know there were Asian American actors in the 60s and 70s and 80s, but they were limited. My favorite Asian American actor was Victor Wong, who I met when I was in high school. I liked Victor Wong. He was in Last Emperor. He was in Joy Luck Club. He was the guy. He was like the Asian American character guy. I loved Victor. And met him when I was in high school. But now we have Crazy Rich Asians and Fresh Out the Boat and Shang-Chi, and things are changing. A new generation of kids who said, no, I'm not going to med school. Send me to Yale, drama school. And good. We got a generation is switching, doing things that they love. And it's only going to get more so. We're going to start seeing younger Asian American stories. But in the meantime, those over 60, it's been tough. Tougher. And I'm glad they're getting a chance at the Public. Love the Public. Great place. Been there a number of times pre-COVID. And I hope they enjoy a nice run at the Public at sea. Usually at the end, big takeout in the Times. And they don't say exactly where to get tickets or how. I'm sure it's just go to the New York Public Theater. The show is called Out of Time. All right. Check. Oh, Golden Gooster. Yeah, one more thing about the monologues. I really hope they do well, because if these actors over 60 do well, then maybe they'll want to see my piece, Amok Monologues, which I've done at fringe festivals around the country. Orlando, good reviews. Look it up. Good. San Diego Fringe, good reviews. DC Capitol Fringe, Baltimore Fringe. So I've done a number of fringe festivals since 2017, and then COVID hit, but I might do it sometime. I might do a version of the show in April. I'll let you know. I may do it online. I know I'm doing it online, but I might do it here. In fact, this is why I do this show, because, I am a monologist, a humorist, whatever. I'm also a news guy, columnist. And I kind of do this as a kind of open mic, just to see how long I can stand up and talk to you. If you're listening, if you're there, It doesn't matter if you're there. It doesn't matter if you're there. Because I'm here. I know what it's like to go to a theater and there's like five people sitting down saying, give me that face. Did he mean that? I'm supposed to laugh here now, I think. All right. What else? Well, today at 5:30 Pacific in China, they'll be doing the qualifying for the half pipe, the freestyle women's ski freestyle half pipe. And I'm actually looking forward to it because the Gooster, Eileen Gu, could qualify for her third medal. And I guess it will be according to plan, right? According to plan that she gets this. I think she has an excellent shot. She was at the on Mammoth Mountain in January. She finished first in the half pipe. The half pipe is where, you got the half pipe. I don't know what they do with the top half. They just tear it off. Maybe they recycle. So you get this pipe that you go up and spin around and come down. And she did a 1600. I call them revolutions because every spin is like a revolution, but they call them rotations. I guess revolution is too political, but I like the ring of revolution. So who knows what she's going to throw down in the qualifying. The qualifying round is tonight, Wednesday night, and then Thursday, the finals, where she goes for the gold. And wouldn't it be something? She gets 3 medals, 2 gold, 1 silver. I think that's what it looks like, but it could be 1 gold, 2 silver. Or a gold, silver, and a bronze, 1 of each. But that would be really, that was the goal of China, to have her as a symbol of China's prowess in these winter sports. And I'm checking out the paper, Wall Street Journal, New York Times. They got pictures of young Chinese kids skating. And, that's what it takes. They have this belief that, through health, that they're going to do this. This is how you gain control of your people, too, I guess. And, that's fine, China doing that. But you also have to ask yourself, are these people free to say no to skis and say, I'd rather play ping pong, thank you? Or do they have to do what they're told? This is, we take this kind of thing for granted. It's about freedom. And that's why I'm curious to see how this all plays out with Eileen Gu, because she's made a couple of faux pas in her statements to the media, and just in her statements in general, that makes her sound like an innocent, naive 18-year-old kid living her best life, thinking that she's free. Isn't the world free? And the world isn't free, or China isn't free. And she said it the other day, we talked about this, when she said people in China on Weibo or one of the social media sites were saying, Eileen Gu, tell the world How in China we don't get regular Twitter. We don't get to see Facebook. You don't get to see the Emil Guillermo's takeout. It's blocked on the internet. Tell people that this is the condition of people in China. Tell the world, Aileen go. And like the naive kid she is, she said, well, yeah, I mean, you can just download a VPN on your phone and you can get by the firewall. Well, that Instagram post has been taken down and not shown to the people in China, because if they knew the truth, oh boy, if the Chinese only knew the truth, I mean, that's why we're seeing the kind of slippage in control and power that we have, or maybe that's why we're seeing the reaction on the part of the party and the government to crack down, because they see that people have access to what's really going on, and they're saying, hey, what about us? What about, hey, me too, right? Do I get free internet? Partially free. No YouTube, no Facebook, no, you go to Weibo. But you can't get a meal amongst takeout. So how free is Aileen Gu? And if she cut a deal, maybe it was her mother's deal. Because I don't know. If she goes back to Stanford in the fall and she realizes that she skated for China, but she really is an American because she's used to those kind of American freedoms. How is this story going to play out then? So, but that's for another time. Let her win the medals. China's on the front page of the Wall Street Journal today saying they've discovered skiing. And if Aileen Gu wins a third medal in freestyle skiing, the first year it's an Olympic sport, she will be the poster child of freestyle skiing. She'll be the face of freestyle skiing for women. Although, can you name anyone who's in the men's side? I don't know. I can't. I know that there was a men's competition. I didn't watch it because I was watching the ABCT, American-born Chinese team. Okay. That should do it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone. I mean, all one of you. Thank you for being here. This is episode 246 of Emil Guillermo's Takeout, my takes on all things considerable. We also have a podcast, Emil Guillermo's Takeout. We put out the podcast this week. We'll have the podcast out wherever you podcast. It's different. That's different from what we do here. The live stream. The live stream is its own thing. It's like its own organism. So we'll do the live. This is the live stream, 2 p.m. Pacific live all the time. You can watch it unlive on amok.com or on the platform where you saw it. It usually is stored somewhere where you can watch a recording. This is 246, back with 247 tomorrow. Regular watchers know that this time of the show is usually when I try to help you feel good about yourself. Well, I mean, you just watch the show. You should feel good about yourself. No, I mean, a lot of times people say, oh, I feel this, I feel that. I say, well, what is that thing you feel? And they'll say, shame. I feel shame. And I always say, well, wait a minute. Here's how you combat shame. You combat shame by applying a sense of self-love. Yeah, stick your arm here and your other arm here and just give yourself a hug. Give yourself a hug. That's all it takes. It's self-love. So, check out the replays on amok.com. See the column, AALDEF, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. Or you'll see my column on Christina, Yuna, Lee. Once again, condolences to the family. And condolences to my friend, the Ganoza family, Joe's family. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you be safe. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here, back again tomorrow.